Well, thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope you're all safe and well wherever you are on this bank holiday weekend. I hope you're enjoying the long weekend if you're getting the benefit of it. I know some have to work and others have the time to relax with friends and family and whatnot. But yes, we continue with this high pressure dominated weather pattern. We have very little in the way of rain over the next 7 days or so, really. You can see this quite nicely off the total accumulated precipitation. Pretty much the UK and Ireland void of precip right the way through to the upcoming weekend at least, and it looks as if that we're going to even see that continuing beyond that as well. Down across the south of Europe, we do have the lion's share of moisture, as well as up across Iceland and the northern portions of the continent. Obviously, the moisture cycling around this dominant area of high pressure. But underneath the high pressure, we've got clear skies, light winds, and dry air. That means we are seeing quite the sharp cooling during the overnight period, albeit nights are growing increasingly short now. We still have enough heat release during the course of the overnight period to see temperatures dropping off. So this is off mediocele. We've got the centre of the high across the north of the UK. This is where you've got the clear skies, lightest winds, and the coolest temperatures. That extends into the north of England as well. But you notice England, Wales on the southeastern periphery of the high. Therefore, we're seeing that nagging northeasterly wind coming off the cool waters of the North Sea. So here the temperatures are a little bit less on the thermometer cold, but we do have that breeze, which then makes it feel distinctly chilly out there. So that's the current pressure across the UK and Ireland at the time of recording, which is the back of 7 a.m. in the morning. These are the current temperatures then. So we do have pockets where it remains below freezing, but we've got that extension all the way down into the Midlands, the south of England, Wales, southwestern England, where we've got temperatures down into mid-single figures. Where you've got shelter from that breeze, we've seen temperatures dropping below freezing during the overnight period here. But these are not the minimums, obviously. The minimum was achieved a couple of hours earlier than the time of recording here, but we are still holding on to around -1 at Dromalbin in South Lanarkshire, for example. But the temperatures are going to respond. That dry air heats up quite nicely at this time of the year. The sun is of August strength, of course, and yeah, we are going to see the temperatures warming up as we progress through the course of this week as well. Probably knocking the door of low 20s anywhere from the south of the UK all the way to the north as we move towards the middle portions of this short working week. So, lack of rainfall, high pressure. We did see the temperature back, 5 years ago, yesterday, of -6.6 at Kinbrace and Sutherland. Now, that was, in fact, the UK's coldest temperature for the month of May since all the way back to 1997. There was a -6 at Catesbridge in County Down. That was Northern Ireland's coldest day in November since the 1980s. So the reasons why I'm bringing that up is that we are seeing a very similar type of spring this year to 2020. This brings me on quite nicely to the longer range that we're going to look at some of the models in a second or two here. But we are seeing a very similar pattern, very dry ground. We've seen a drought developing during the spring of 2020. We've seen it in 2011. We've seen it in years such as 2007, 2012 as well. There is similarities to this year. 2020 was in fact the driest spring on record, I believe, for the UK as well as Ireland. What followed that was a very mixed summer. And I made mention of an article way back in 2020 saying that the earlier, the warmer, the drier weather and the persistence of that warm and dry, the quicker we can return to more unsettled. And that is something that I have to factor in. Now, we do have years like 1976, 1997, 2011. Some of those years did produce, even 2018, for example, some of those years did produce hot, dry summers. But unfortunately, there is a mixture of hot and dry, but also cool and wet. 2011, for example, was below average. It was actually a very cool summer, and rainfall, I think, was around 95% of normal for the summer as a whole. It was a mixed bag. It turned warmer during the second half of the season. So it's going to be quite a difficult call. I'm obviously building the ideas with regards to the summer season. These are the current temperatures of CDAS, by the way, and you can see here that we've got neutral conditions within the Pacific. So in a sense, what I'm getting at here with regards to neutral ENSO or neutral, but essentially we don't have an El Nino or a La Nina. It's a neutral mode, so we don't have a particularly great signal within the Pacific Basin in terms of a teleconnection or a long range driver in terms of determining the upcoming summer season. Now, in terms of the Atlantic, we have cooled off quite considerably, both in the tropical and subtropical Atlantic basin. We do, however, have a build-up of warmth surrounding the UK and Ireland. That has been thanks to that dominant area of high pressure that has been planked over the UK and Ireland for the majority of this spring season. The problem is, does this warmer than normal waters eventually lead to the decrease in pressure over the UK, an increase in moisture, rainfall, and we start to go back to the cool and unsettled conditions that we've seen last year. We've seen it, even though it was a warmer than average summer on the most recent 30-year climatology. It was cooler. In fact, it was the coolest summer since 2015. But you go back to the previous 30 years, it was actually above average. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'll get there in the end. So it's going to be interesting to see here. If we look at another SST analysis here, you can actually see, in fact, that's the wrong chart. The problem that we've got is we've got a very, very anomalous warm pool surrounding the UK and Ireland here. It could really go either way. We've got dry ground, we've got warmer than average water surrounding the UK and Ireland here. What type of influence that has in the atmosphere is very much open to question. But if we go back to the more near-term weather, you can see here that eventually what happens if it does continue to load for me, because it seems to be a little bit slow. If we go all the way out to around, the 20th of the month, you notice here that we are starting to increase the moisture according to the ECMWF over the UK and Ireland. If we go to the overview chart here, you can see that the pattern does eventually start to break down. So play through this week, high pressure essentially anchored in place over the UK and Ireland. The persistence of this high has been very notable. Notice here that we've got unsettled weather across Spain, Portugal, southern portions of Europe, the Balkans, etc. That a mega block, that northerly block, continues to rule the roost. But you notice here that as we move towards Sunday, 11th of May, we are starting to see the heights coming down and weather systems coming up from the south and down from the north. Notice a lot of unsettled conditions over Spain, Portugal, and France. So we are going to start to see, if the ECM is correct, we are going to start to see a little bit of a change taking place here, but not exclusively a washout. You notice here as we continue to play through this that the high pressure is still trying to cling on, which is very interesting. But notice here that we're starting to see the low and the trough really start to develop here west of the UK and Ireland. That could open the door, by the way, to some bona fide warmth from the south. And that is something that needs to be considered as well. So we've got one system that runs northwards here on the eastern flank of the trough. That then pulls northwards, and then we're left with a high pressure to the east, low pressure to the west scenario. Southerly winds, and if we put on the 850s, you can see here that we've got a tongue of milder air getting lifted north when you've got the low to the west, high to the east. So this is going to be an interesting one here. High pressure remains dominant. Where that high sits is going to determine what type of temperature we are dealing with. So if we go back to the here now, you can see that we've got some fairly chilly air getting dragged in from Scandinavia down over the UK and Ireland. But what's going to happen is that cooler air is going to kind of get mixed out slightly thanks to the presence of this high. But that cold air is getting driven south into France, into Iberia. That's going to peg the temperatures back. Continue to play it through here. You notice this high that continues to remain dominant is relatively cool within the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So therefore, we're going to see the temperatures fluctuate. The diurnal range is going to swing back and forth between chilly by night and fairly warm by afternoon. So that is going to be the case. Continue to play through this loop. You can see here that the temperatures are reasonably subpar for the time of the year. Nothing particularly warm to speak about. We're starting to see a little bit milder air moving into France. But as we play through, you can see here again the chilly air floating back in over the UK and Ireland here. But it's once that system starts to wind up to the west out over the Atlantic here, that is where we're going to start to open the opportunity to something considerably milder. Now that there, for example, could produce mid-20s all the way up into Scotland here if this was to materialise. So, but this is away out to the Tuesday the 20th of May, for example. So away out in Fantasyland. Anyway, so I've given you my thinking with regards to the dry spring that we've got, potentially one of the driest, warmest springs on record for the UK. After what follows this mild, March, April, potentially May as well, it could go either way. We're going up to a climate crossroads, so to speak, in terms of the June, July, August period. I personally am leaning towards a mixed bag. I think we're going to get hotter spells than we've seen last year, but there is opportunity as well for some significant heavy rainfall events, hot spells, and a real mixture of weather. I don't think we're going to go to the levels of 2011, which was the coldest back then in a couple of decades for the summer season in the UK. I don't think we're necessarily going to a 2018 summer either. The jury is very much out with regards to this summer, but this is a tweet here by World Climate Service showing the latest CANSIPS model, which indicates essentially high pressure, positive NAO, and essentially warm and dry conditions overall. This is the period June through August, by the way, and the latest model run indicates low pressure down to the southeast, high pressure essentially anchored in between low heights to the north, low heights away down to the southeast of Europe, and positive heights in between. So we'll wait and see what happens. So let's have a quick look then at the mean sea level pressure of the various models with regards to the upcoming summer season. Let's see if I can blow this up just a little bit to make it easier for everybody to see. So this is the JMA model, first and foremost, and you can see here that we've got low heights to the north of the UK, we've got positives down across Iberia, into France, and extending into the southern half of the UK. Now that, to me, again, this is over a 3-month period, remember. And this is Fantasyland, this is a bit of fun. Summer season can be a very difficult season to predict. And given how warm the waters are surrounding the UK, given how dry the ground is becoming over both the UK and Ireland, we could have a significant hot spell like we've seen back at the end of April, beginning of May, and then we're obviously seeing a drop in temperature. But the JMA is indicating that we do have somewhat of a classic summer where you've got highest pressure down towards the south, relatively lower pressure the further north you go. So you could be talking about the more unsettled, cooler, wetter conditions off the Atlantic across Scotland and Northern Ireland, and more frequent hot spells the further south you go over both Ireland and especially England and Wales. That's off the JMA model, as I've said. Let's have a quick look at what the latest ECMWF is indicating. Not a great overall signal here. You've got the strongest heights across the Atlantic. We've got low heights to the north. That could be a little bit of a slightly cooler northwesterly component to that overall setup. Again, the models are not overly great to go by at this moment in time. The Met Office is indicating a lot different. It's actually looking a lot more low pressure dominated during the July-August period here, down as far as Iberia. And you've got quite low heights across much of the Atlantic, which is interesting to see. If we move on then to Meteo France here, not a great signal overall. We do have some slight positive anomalies showing up to the north of the UK and Ireland. Does that indicate more higher pressure to the north, lower pressure underneath? That's possible as well. And I think that is what I've uploaded onto a draft on the website anyway. So let's have a very quick look at other aspects then. Let's have a look at precipitation and see what it is suggesting. So this is the multi-model run. So this is June through August, and that's when you combine the ECM, the Met Office, Meteo France, CMCC, DWD, NCEP, JMA, etc. When you combine and all merge these models together, we've not got much of a signal showing up over western areas of Europe. Like I say, a neutral ENSO within the Pacific, very warm waters surrounding the UK and Ireland, but we've got cooler waters down towards the subtropical and tropical Atlantic. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of response we see. High pressure in the near term is going to remain dominant, and therefore sniffs of drought, concerns about water shortages and hosepipe bans, etc., are probably going to start to become more introduced from a regional point of view over the next several weeks. Do we see significant rain in the medium range? We are going to probably see a bit of a fluctuation back and forth, a little bit of heights coming down over the UK and Ireland. That increases instability within the atmosphere above our heads. With strong incoming solar radiation, that increases the chance of showers and thunderstorms, for example. But I'm not overly enthusiastic at this moment in time that we're going to see anything significant in terms of wind, rain, and low pressure dominance in the next couple of weeks here. So stay tuned. I know this isn't really giving you an awful lot to work with in terms of the models, but we'll keep watching this. And remember what I've said already, Sunday, 25th of May, 4 p.m. live stream, going to be releasing the summer forecast as well as the Atlantic hurricane season as well. So stay tuned. Hope you can stick around here in the channel. Content absolutely free, 6 days a week. So like and subscribe and leave a comment. Enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday. See you all being well tomorrow with more. Bye for now.